catch me when I fall down.
Welcome, 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 everybody. I'm just going to get my music down on my screen the way I want it, everything all set up. Hello, I've got it. All these new things. It's new AI recording. I have to give permission to somebody's AI to record the things that I say, and then you all have to get permission from me to record the things that I want to say. So, hello, we're all here. Permission granted, permission offered. Welcome. I want to welcome you to Feminine Wisdom, acting on embodied desire. I am Sonia Semyonova. For those of you who don't know me, I am a writer and an intimacy coach, and I work primarily with women who really want to redefine what it means to be in relationship, to have a sexual expression, and to be the owners and keepers of this power of love. And we're going to be here today talking about desire, talking about the way that desire relates to your feminine wisdom. And when I say that, what I mean is feminine wisdom, that intuition, the kind of softer knowingness that has always guided women throughout all of history. And we're going to talk about why this matters right now, why it matters right now. Why do I point you guys to you women to be able to know what you want, to be able to voice what you want? Why is this important? So first, before we get into any of that, we're going to drop in. So I want to ask you to find your feet somewhere flourish and allow your eyes to close or at least softly look to one point. And I'll have you tune into your ears right now. What do you hear right now? Just allow all of the sound to come into your ears as if every sound was a symphony for you. See if you can connect to a sound that is what you perceive as the farthest away from you. And see if you can connect to a sound that is very close to you, perhaps even the sound of your own breath. And now allow all of the sounds to come back in and focus on one sound that you like the best. What do you want to tune into most above all other sounds? Let yourself really hear this sound as if this sound was being made entirely for your benefit, for your pleasure. And then release your focus on that sound. And slowly bring your eyes to open again. I'd love to hear from everyone just as a form of introduction in the chat. I love using the chat just a way to keep you, to listen to you all as I'm talking. And in the chat, if you want to share maybe where you're currently are right now, whether that is defined by I'm in my living room or I'm in, whatever city I'm in. And then one sound that you heard, one sound that you heard. So where are you at? And one sound that you heard. drop that in the chat. So I'm in my living room. I heard the sound of the cars on the rainy street outside of me, outside of my window. It's just started to rain in this part of the world. This is a very rainy part of the world, and it just started to go into the rainy season. So there's something that's really calming and soothing about that sound. Anyone else feels like sharing in the chat, drop where you're at and a sound that you heard. Snuggled in my bed, the sound of an air purifier, like trees rustling. Yeah. There's something that when you allow the sounds to actually be for your benefit, some of the sounds that can be really annoying, those kind of white noise things, you can actually bring them into some sort of pleasure, like turning them into the trees rustling. 12th floor of my apartment building, by an open window, lots of cars and traffic. The sound of the wind blowing. Yeah. In my bedroom, the sound of the cars. As I focus in the rhythm, I imagine it sounded like sea waves. Nice. Yeah, beautiful, 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 beautiful. Okay, thank you. And feel free to keep writing them in. Oh yeah, I mean, Omaha, petting my dog, wanting to hear that sound. Yeah, it is. There is a sound, even if like I have a cat. I don't have a dog, but even with the cat's fur, I can notice a sound. Yeah, heard the air going through. It was more soothing than irritating. Yeah. And then hear it in my flat, the sound of the cars, the sound of my heart beating. Yeah, well tuned, well tuned. Yeah, lovely. Okay. So I'll tell you really quickly how this is gonna work. All of my live calls, what I do is I offer what I like to think of as sort of a sermon. And then that gives us a chance to really go deeply into the topic. And I will offer some different opportunities for you to engage in the chat. And then just because I do post these to the broader internet and people who are not live do get to have these recordings, I don't record the Q&A section. So I will go through the lecture topic. And then at the very, very end, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about your specific questions. And so as we're going through the content, I would encourage you to write things down as they come up. You're like, what the heck did that mean? Or, what am I supposed to do with this thing? And this relates to this in my life. And I don't know how to make those things work together. And then we can talk about those in the Q&A. I also encourage you to use the chat throughout the entire thing. I do manage to somehow keep an eye on the chat as I'm keeping an eye on the screen here. And so I do notice it. I may not say everything that I see in the chat, but I do notice it. And oftentimes there's a way to weave the questions or the statements in there. So yeah, but that's how we're going to go today. And what I'll say too is that I offer these free workshops about once a month. And one of the things I'll say about this is I love teaching these. I'd be happy to teach these. These are just my free offering to my community. And I do also at the end have a little pitch about some of the paid work that I offer. Now, this is not a bait and switch. I'm not here to tell you, half of the stuff and then you have to pay for the rest of it. I genuinely want you to have powerful information that's going to guide you. And so this is not, some clever sales technique. This is just me offering something and then saying, if you would like to go deeper into this topic, we can go deeper. And there's a lot deeper to go. So without further ado, let's talk about desire. We're going to talk about some of the highs of desire. I think that many of us, let me get a gut check in the chat. How many of you have heard this concept that desires are evil, that they're going to, this idea of like leading you into temptation, or desires should be something that we turn away from. We should never follow our desires. Yep, I'm seeing yes in the chat. Anyone who's ever been introduced to kind of modern Christianity, or even the teachings of yoga, Buddhism, spiritual traditions like that, you'll often hear this concept. And I want to offer a different perspective here. I want to offer something else. I want to talk about why desire is such an important guide for us, why it's so important right now. And right now, specifically, because a few weeks ago we just passed through an eclipse. And when we have an eclipse, there's always a little bit of a shedding that happens during these times. And if anyone else, yeah, like did anyone shed something in the eclipse season? Like did anyone else have something where you're like, oh shit, like that? I guess that's not mine anymore. You know, it's these are times that this is supposed to happen twice a year. We go through these experiences where we lose stuff that's not aligned to us. And then we plant seeds for what we actually want. And so the key with it is to not resist the shedding. And the key with it is to begin to listen to what the desires are and update those desires, because you might have had a desire for something 3 years ago that is no longer the same desire. It no longer holds the same value for you right now. And so eclipse portals are meant to give us that chance to work through something and say, yeah, does this still fit? Is this still something I actually want? So it's kind of you know, it's timing that is perfect to do a conversation around desire. And the way that we're going to lead into desire is we're going to talk about the myth of Inanna, her descent. This is called Inanna's descent. It's one of my absolute favorite myths of all time. It's actually the very oldest written myth about a goddess. And she, you know, she's something I've been studying this myth for more than 10 years now. And there was something that kind of struck me a couple of months ago when I was revisiting it that brought me to want to teach her again, to teach it in specifically in the light of desire and the need for us to as women reclaim desire, reclaim that intuitive hunch that is meant to guide us. So, but before we go into any of Inanna, I want to just address one big question that is always in the room whenever I am working with people around desire, which is, well, there's several questions really but the biggest one is, how do you know what you want? How do you know what you actually want? How do you know what you don't want? How do you define, you know, the difference between attachment and desire? How do you get into the question of, is this ego that's leading me somewhere or some other unsavory source? Because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. Or is this truly divine guidance? So if there were a simple answer to this question of how do I know what I want, then we'd all be cured magically. The world would look really different. And I would not gatekeep that answer if I had it. But what I will say to you is that the only way to really know what we want is to go through the journey. And when I say journey, I'm talking about a journey. I'm not talking about a vacation. I'm not talking about a stroll down to your favorite cafe. The journey, which is a journey to yourself, to knowing yourself. And these are the kinds of journeys that we read about in myths and fairy tales and those big epic stories where the main character goes in one way and comes out another way. And the journey is defined by making mistakes. It's defined by learning from those mistakes. It's defined by becoming more authentically oneself than you were at the beginning, which is a perfect place to talk about Inanna. So has anyone ever, can you drop in the chat if you've ever worked with Inanna, heard any of her stories? She's got many stories. The Descent is her most famous, but give me a chat. I want to hear, you know, how many of you have actually heard of this queen before, worked with her, maybe done some work with the Descent. I did in a theater project I had for a few years, I did one of her, I did the Descent as one of our theater projects. It was powerful. Yep. Okay. Yeah, and channeled her. Yeah. That's a big one. Yeah. Lovely. Lovely. Yeah. Inanna, I'll tell you this. Like I said, she was her story, The Descent, is the oldest written account of a goddess. And there was something that I heard that, you know, her accounts, like all of these stories in the Sumerian tradition, they were written on stone. They were carved into stone. And that tells you how much the Sumerians wanted to keep them. They were carved into stone, and then they were hidden away in these really like impossible to destroy places. That shows you how important these stories are and why they still stay with us, okay? So for those of you, if you haven't ever worked with Inanna before, I did send you a link to the original poem of the Descent in the sign up email, and I hope you read it. But if not, you can go back to that original email afterwards, and I'm going to give you some of the highlights here just so that we can get all caught up. Because I'll tell you that there's never enough. I've been working with this myth for 10 years. The first time I heard it, my daughter was 4 months old, and now she's almost 10. So I've been working with this myth this long, and I'm still discovering things about it and still discovering new ways that I want to teach it. So let's talk about Inanna. So imagine a woman who is perfect beyond belief. She is the queen of heaven. She's stunning. She is magnificent. She is worshipped by everyone and everything. Her shit smells like roses, in other words. And she knows it. But this doesn't mean that Inanna is necessarily a mean girl. She's not having this power trip. She's not up there, wielding her power around violently. She's actually reigning over the kingdom of heaven, the queendom of heaven, in a way that's pretty just. But one of the things that happens when a woman is in alignment, as Inanna is that she understands that at many points in our lives, we're going to be questioned. And we're going to choose the questioning often. We are not going to sit idly and just allow the same to be the same, because things change. So one day, she hears a desire. And this desire calls to her. And this desire says, you need to go to the underworld. You need to go visit your sister, the queen of the underworld. Her sister, Ereshkigal, who is the complete opposite of Inanna. If Inanna is this graceful goddess, Ereshkigal is the goth princess. She is queen of everything that is dark and destruction and death. And Inanna is light and life. But Inanna knows that she has to go. She doesn't know why. She doesn't say why. She just goes. And if you read the poem, you'll know that it wasn't an easy journey. So before she leaves, Inanna gets dressed up in all of her fine queenly regalia. 7 items of significance that show how powerful she is and how magnificent she is. And at 7 gates, as she crosses into the underworld, each one of those pieces of her regalia is stripped from her. And she enters her sister's throne room completely naked and terrified. At every turn, a voice says to her when Inanna says, "Why are you taking this from me? Hush, quiet, quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect. They may not be questioned." That's the line, the refrain that happens at every gate. So she shows up to Ereshkigal, and she's naked, and she is terrified, and she has completely been upended, and she is regretting every bit of this decision to come here. And she approaches Ereshkigal. And rather than giving her a warm welcome, Ereshkigal kills her immediately. Kills Inanna, and not only kills her, but hangs her up on a meat hook, as if Inanna is now her favorite art. And so, again, if you read the poem, you understand that this is not the end. This is the summit of the poem. This is the summit of her descent. What's the opposite of the summit? This is the pit of the valley of her descent. And Inanna, the thing with us is that she teaches us several things about desire. And this is the first point in the story, is that desire is not meant to be followed blindly as if it will only lead us into salvation. Following her desire at this point in the story looks very, very, very bad. It looks like she is going to be here stuck in the underworld for the rest of eternity. And then what happens to heaven? What happens to the balance of the underworld and the upper world if the queen is stuck below dead? But while Inanna trusted her desire enough to go into the underworld to follow it, she knew to do more than that. So before she left, she asked her servant to make sure if she doesn't return in, I think it was 3 days, then she should send help. And so her servant, Ninshubar, does exactly this. So while Inanna's on the meat hook, Ninshubar is up in heaven saying, she hasn't come back. Here we go. Time for action. So what happens, does anyone remember who, perhaps Lindsay, if you had studied this as deeply, let's hear if you remember who was it that these little creatures who saved Inanna from her death. Anyone remember? Very humble creatures. Oh, it says, I just learned of them. Okay, so do you remember what they are? This is one of the best parts of the story. It is so unassuming, and it makes you rethink everything about disgust and the rotting, the parts of the life that rot away. It's flies. Yes, it's close. It says bugs or germs. It's flies. It's two flies. Two flies. And if you think about the role of flies, we're disgusted by them. We're killing these things all the time if we see a fly. But who else is responsible for transforming dead into life? Somebody has to do that job. And so it makes perfect sense. The flies fly through the gates. They don't have to get questioned by the underworld because they kind of belong there. And what happens is that they show up and they find Ereshkigal, and Ereshkigal is in a tremendous amount of pain at this point, and she is moaning in pain. And we don't really know what exactly is happening, but the poem says it's like childbirth. And so the flies, rather than fighting, what they do is they go and they offer empathy to Ereshkigal. It's one of the most beautiful things if you think about it. Here is this queen who has killed their queen, and typically you'd think that this was their enemy, but they go to her and they begin to actually mimic her very sounds. So where Ereshkigal is moaning, they moan in return. And this offers Ereshkigal the ability to understand that her needs are being met. She's being met. And so then she offers them, what do you want? And the flies say, well, there's one thing. And she says, anything but that. And of course, it's that. But there's one catch. In order for Inanna to ascend back into heaven, something has to take her place. Someone has to take her place. And so two guards of the underworld go with her back up to heaven, and she has to go and sort through who is she going to send to take her place, because the underworld is all about balance. And so the first thing that she does is that she sees her sons, and she sees her sons and she sees that her sons are so happy to have her back, and her sons are a reflection of her, and her sons have been mourning her loss. And so she says, no, it can't be them. It can't be them. And the next person that she sees is her servant, Ninshubar, which, if you recall, Ninshubar was the one who acted on Inanna's desire that said, okay, look, if I'm not back, then send help. So Ninshubar has proven herself, and no, she's not the one. She can't be sent to the underworld. And this part, by the time she gets to this third person, this is her second big teaching about the nature of desire. There is always a reason that we want what we want. There is always a reason that we want what we want. And so when she goes to the third person, and it happens to be her partner, her king, probably her prince, more likely, if you want to get into the dynamics, her lover, and he is dressed in his very best clothing. He's sitting on the throne, and it looks like he's been celebrating. And she sees it, and she immediately sees that something was off in her court. She's been gone, and he has been celebrating. And so what she does is she clearly says, well, it's him. My lover is the one who is meant to replace me. My husband shall replace me in the underworld. He's been in celebration since I've left. And so he goes, and this is the end of the story. Inanna takes her throne again, and she steps back in the place in the underworld, or I'm sorry, excuse me, her place in heaven. And her husband goes. There's another piece of it. He's halftime there, and his sister is the other half of it there. So these two major points, right? Not to follow desire blindly. Everything that we want will not lead us to salvation. And if you believe that that's true, then you're working from ego. And the second part, that even the things that we want that are egoic desires, there's a reason that we want them. Beneath everything, there is a hidden reason. Why we go left instead of right, why we choose noodles instead of bread. There is a reason for all of this. So let's go deeper into those. But first, I just want to hear, what are your reactions? What have you heard? Any other takes on this? Like, tell me what happened in your body from hearing this story, perhaps again, perhaps the first time. What's Inanna saying to you right now? I know the first time I ever heard her story about this story, I was blown away, and it led me to this exact workshop of wondering, like, why the fuck would she do this? It's this fascinating thing to see, to be able to lean into the mystery like this, to just follow your desires. You want to know about the integration that Inanna had? What did she get out of it? Yeah. I mean, I think we're all still unpacking that for hundreds of years, thousands of years, I should say. A sense of relief. Yeah. Many of these themes in my life right now. Yeah. Yeah. How to discern my desires. Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about that actually right now. Going back to what Inanna taught us about desire, is that it's meant to be followed, but not blindly. It's not always going to only lead us to salvation. Just because we want something, it's not going to save us. It's always magical in what it reveals, though. And so let's take this example of, I follow a lot of intuitive eating. That's one of the big things that has been with me for many, many, many years. It's just, okay, so what do I want? Like this morning for breakfast, I was deciding what I wanted. I make sourdough, and I was like, okay, well, what do I want? Do I want to make an egg? Do I want some tahini? And I have to sit and be still with that. And I honor that as a way for me to recognize the nutritional desires that are coming from my body. Just saying, if I need something a little heavier, I'm going to probably go for the egg. If I need something that is, going to give me enough, the perhaps what I know about tahini is that it's really good for bones. And so maybe there's something within my bones, right? So I'm on my third day of my bleed. So maybe I need a little bit more in that kind of tissue building. So we don't know. We just go, okay, well, I guess and it's not about should, right? It's not about should. It's like, okay, well, I should have tahini because of X, Y, and Z. It's about what I want. And so if noticing what we want to eat can be that powerful, just imagine what's going on with other directions that you're getting from your body. But I'll ask you guys this, you women, you folks, this is like, have you ever had any difficulty determining what you want? That question that I asked in the very beginning, how do we know what we want? How do we know what we want? Has anyone ever struggled with it? Just, maybe you're staring at the open fridge, unsure. What am I supposed to eat right now? Or you're staring at an open page, or you're staring at, just all your life possibilities. How do I know what I want? Yeah, I love this. Yeah, when there's lots of good things, there's lots of, that's especially hard when there's lots of good things. It's almost easier. It's the paradox of choice, right? It's the Amazon issue, right? If I have 6 million pairs of socks that I can choose from, it's going to be really, really hard. The other question that I'll ask you, if assuming that, because most women who come to anything that I offer are generally in relationship with men. And when have you ever felt, or have you ever felt that desire to just, please just let me hand this over? Let me just give this over to my partner. Let me just let someone else take the reins in these decisions. Perhaps because you've been told that this is what it means to be in your feminine. Perhaps because you've been told that women just need to shut up and take what they're offered. And so here's what I want to offer to you. Your desires are magical. Your desires are magical. And there's a reason that women's desires are so important right now, because look at the state of the world. Look at the war and the poverty and the corporate greed and the lack of fulfillment on this grand scale. No one's happy right now. And, if you look at just how we treat our children, how we treat our elders, how we treat our pregnant women, I guarantee you that if more women learned to listen to what we wanted and then acted accordingly, asked for what we wanted in the world, I don't think it would look like this. Anyone else? I don't think it would look like this. You are here today because you want to shape the world according to a different map. And when I say the world, I mean both the greater community, and I also mean the world that is you, the world of you. You are this modern woman who has access to so much and has difficulty distinguishing between what you want to eat, what kind of sex you want to have, and the type of relationship model that you want, and who should you vote for, and all of this stuff, all of these undirected desires are the reason that so many women are caught up in loops of anxiety, why they feel unsettled, why they're caught up in this difficult cycle of outrage and exhaustion. So let's ground that energy and bring it into the center here. And I want to talk about this connection between anxiety. So many women that I have worked with, I started doing, my work is primarily with women. Every once in a while, a very brave man slips through, and, I love him. But I see this consistently, that a lot of women are dealing with anxiety at levels that are unprecedented. And this has been in the situation since about 2016, when I first started to really notice things ramping up. And you can do your historical math here. But what I want to point out is that we are in a place of deep anxiety because we know that we want something else, and yet we don't know how to act for it. Anxiety is literally rotting us from the inside out. And the way it's doing that is there's all these desires that are going unseen, and they're all saying, please do this, please do that. And we don't pay enough attention to them. And then we're not acting in alignment with that. And then all of a sudden we put all this blame on ourselves. And I want to be clear about something. I'm not blaming you for the state of the world. I'm not saying that if you were to listen to your desires, boom, immediately things would change, like you responsible individually for the state of the world. No, it's a collective thing. And that's why we have to do some collective work to begin to look at what we want and how to act for that. Anxiety is undirected desire. If you think about when you are going through anxiety and you feel this kind of excitement, it's like an electrified feeling. It is oftentimes that your body wants action. Your spirit or your kind of higher self wants action of some kind. And generally, it's not being taken. And again, I want to be clear, there are a lot of systems that are set up to make sure that you don't take action. I want to make that really clear. They're not impossible. They're not impossible to break out of. And I'm going to show you how to break out of these in a kind of a litmus test to figure out the way to act here, okay? So one of the challenges that we face when we tap into desires is that we go against the norm. We do things that people are going to question. I mean, think about Inanna's decision to go to the underworld. This was not like everyone wasn't cheering her on and saying, yeah, babe, you go down there, you go see your sister, no big deal. Nobody's in her court cheering her on. In fact, I would guarantee you that if she were a modern woman and she were to say something like that, everybody would fight against her. They'd be like, you got a job to do. Stay here. But here's what I want to say. We all have these moments. And it can be something as simple as like, the kind of relationship dynamic that you want to have, or the kind of career that you want to lead, the type of the way that you want to express yourself creatively or sexually. All of these things break rules. Now, this is something that's very important to understand. Some rules are meant to be broken. Some rules are not meant to be broken. Now, we can have a desire to break rules. We can have a desire to break rules that aren't meant to be broken. We can have a desire to break rules that are meant to be broken. When we break rules that are meant to be broken, there's an energy that is created. We get excited. And when there's a rule that's not meant to be broken and we break that, we get depleted. So things like just stealing, right? That's generally, it's not a great thing to do. We all kind of know that that's a rule that's not meant to be broken. We steal something, whether it's an idea or an actual physical thing, and we don't feel great. We feel kind of depleted. The guilt of it comes and takes us over and depletes us, right? But let's say we have a desire to create something that is very, very, very out of the norm. And we find ourselves saying things that are going to ruffle some feathers. And then at the same time, somebody comes to you after having been part of that creation and says, thank you. Thank you. You awakened something in me. You gave me permission to do X, Y, and Z. This is the key difference when we are discerning which way to go with our desires, when we have a desire present. And I'll tell you this, it's not always a clean process. You don't know going into it sometimes if you're going to be breaking a just rule or an unjust rule. And this is what I want to say is I want to give you permission to be a little messy. I want to give you permission to screw things up a little bit, so long as you are willing to clean up your messes. All of us are able to clean up our messes. Like Inanna was able to clean up her mess. She kind of planned for it, didn't she? And it was a big mess. Can you imagine if the Queen of Heaven never came back? It would be really, really bad. Because the underworld and heaven need each other. They're meant to be two sides of a coin. She planned for it. She said, okay, look, I'm probably going to go in and make a huge mess. And I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I know how to clean this up. And so putting someone at task to say, watch me, make sure that I come back. And if I don't, X, Y, and Z. So when you're listening to your desires, you're allowing yourself to have a journey. You're allowing yourself to have the experience of self-knowledge. And eventually you're going to get better at it. This is what I'll remind you. It doesn't always have to be as if you're in kindergarten the entire time. You will get better. You will notice, okay, well, here's that desire coming in again. I'm in it. Like, I'm going to share a little confession here. Like I adore smoking cigarettes. Like I adore it so much. I love smoking cigarettes more than anything else, right? And yet I know it's a terrible idea. Okay. So I smoked in my 20s. I smoked from like my teens until my early 20s. And then I struggled really badly to quit because it was causing a lot of issues for me. And I still, to this day, 48, okay, to this day, I still have moments where I'm like, it smells so good and it looks so fun. But I know, and like, I'm also not going to lie that like every once in a while I will have a cigarette, but it is not something that I know I can do daily. It's not something I can even do weekly. It's like a couple of times a year, if that at all. And the reason for it is because I know that desire is breaking a rule that's meant to be there, right? We're not supposed to be consuming, um, you know, like mass produced tobacco covered with all sorts of chemicals and lighting that 10 times a day. We're not supposed to be doing that. That's not a great thing for our health. It's not in alignment with how that plant is supposed to be used. So it allows us when we begin to work with these desires more and more, it allows us to really see what is the unjust rule. Sorry, this side was my unjust rule side. And what is the just, what is the rule that needs to be maintained? And the difference, just so long as you don't stay in a state of inaction. Anxiety, you can really transform this loop. You can allow yourself to see what is the desire that's beneath this anxiety. Listen to it. Allow yourself to really hear what it is your body's asking for. And if you can do something about it, because you can't do everything, you can't do something about everything, right? You can listen and just like soothe yourself like a little baby. I'm so sorry that you're watching this horrendous injustice happening, and you individually cannot do everything about it. So, when we do that, when we begin to really pay attention to our desires, what we're going to find is that there is magic in them. Just like Inanna followed her desire, and then suddenly she finds out that like her husband's like not really in her court. You know, he's not on her side. He is the whole time she's gone. Everyone else is worried and trying to find out how they can get her back. And he's there at a party. So if we begin to listen long enough, we understand that sometimes these sort of like, I have to go do this and I don't know why moments, there is a long game of our intuition speaking to us at that point. And I really believe that a woman's desires are linked directly with a woman's magic, with her ability to trust herself so much that she takes action according to what she wants. So I want to come to a point where we're going to do a practice in a moment, but this is what I want to say is let's talk about this at a practical level very quickly. Women have had their voices silenced for centuries. We have also had our connection to our eroticism silenced and squashed for almost the same exact period of time. And I want to ask you to consider the connection between the two. There's another story, there's another poem about Inanna that is so beautiful, and it talks, it's, I don't remember exactly the name of it, but it has to do with her sitting under an apple tree, and she ends up looking at her own pussy, and she's like, it's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. And, you know, here's this ancient remembering of the power of the feminine showing up in this form, in these stories of Inanna. And here's us at this moment in time where we're finally safe enough to speak what we want without being burned at the stake, to have sex with whoever we want to have sex with or not without being destroyed. We have to do the work now to let our bodies become aware that we're not under the same rules anymore. Some very unjust rules were broken by our foremothers. Was it perfect in how they broke them? No, but it never is. That those rules were broken. Permission was given for more women to be more vocal, to be more embodied in their sexual expression. And what you'll find is that the more you get into your desires, the more that you will find that the truest ones speak from between your legs. And I'm not talking just about sex, I'm talking about full on guidance. There's a reason that so many women who tend to be what you might think of as very mystical or, you know, powerful, a lot of them are very grounded and deeply so in their pelvis, in the lower part of their bodies. They're connected to that place of connection between the earth and the sky, their animal sense and their rational sense. We have to have both. Both of them can guide us. So let's go into a practice of listening. First, I want to hear a couple of things in the chat. Just what I want to hear is what are you taking away from everything that I just said? There were a lot of different points. But I find that when we just take a moment and capture something, to frame it, to put it in a little space in our mind and say, I'm going to put a pin in that and remember that I want to go back to that one day. We'll remember it more. This is why people write things down. They take notes when they're listening. Yep. Anxiety is undirected desire. Yeah. Yeah. Desire is magic. It is. It is like I'm dying to share this. Like I'm dying to share this thing. Is like you guys, like all we have to do is just listen to our desires. Like that's what the witches are doing, and then they do action in alignment with them. Okay. Sense of energy release through actions, right? Like so, if we're breaking rules that are meant to be broken, it feels powerful. It feels really alive. If we're breaking rules that are not meant to be broken, we feel depleted. Great, thanks. And for anyone who's watching the recording, I would just recommend that you do a little journaling right now and just write down a few notes before we move into the practice here. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of listening today. And listening requires stillness. And I know that we live in a world that doesn't allow for a lot of stillness, but we have to break that unjust rule in order to tune into the magic of our desires. If we go into this listening, we might have there's a few different ways that we might go, that each of you might go. You might go into the listening and you might not hear anything and be frustrated. But I want you to celebrate that you did it, because any step toward the listening is a way to get better at it. Or second option is that you might hear something, but you have absolutely no idea what it means. You might be like, I don't know what the fuck that was. That's great too. Celebrate that. Again, same deal. It's a step toward it. And you might have one other potential outcome is that you might step into this listening and you find that there's like this like scroll of itemized demands that your desire asks of you. And it's almost overwhelming. And I want to say all of it is great. All of it is great. Everything is bringing you closer to finding your compass. Everything that allows you to listen to what your body is saying, to what your pussy is doing to guide you this way and that. All of it counts. All of it is your magic. So I want to ask you to just have beginner's mind, to give yourself permission to like absolutely suck at the very beginning of listening to desires, like to just be like, oh my God, I can't discern what's a desire and what's an anxiety and what's someone else's opinions of what I should do, right? Beginner's mind. So let's drop in. I'm going to, we're going to use actually a mudra that is very helpful for quieting the mind. These are just hand gestures. They're from the teachings of yoga. See, I'm going to get my hands up on the screen. Oh, I need to do this. Okay, so the mudra is Pushpaputta, and it's essentially you're bringing your pinky fingers together, and then you're just opening your palms. It's very simple. This is a mudra that has to do with giving and receiving. And so it's both at once, which is the nature of desire. So the first thing, as you're holding this mudra, hold it at about heart center here. And then begin to rest your eyes. You can rest your eyes either looking directly in the center of your palms, or you can close your eyes if it helps you concentrate a little bit more. And begin to see in this center of your palms, in the Pushpaputta mudra, something that you want. Something that you want. And it can be huge and it can be tiny. It doesn't matter. Just allow your mind's eye to see the shape and the form, maybe colors. Maybe it's a certain type of way that you'll feel when you receive this. Really sit with it for a moment and breathe with it and allow it to be, allow it to birth itself before you. And if you don't know what you want at all, then I will say just ask for that, ask for clarity. Notice what it feels like in your body when you hold this desire. Notice if there's any changes to it now that you've sat with it for a moment. And now, this next part is quite important. You're going to learn how to offer it. Offering it to what you might call the greater good. You can call it the divine. You can imagine this as a symbol. Maybe it's a group of people. Maybe it's a divine being. Maybe it's a part of nature that really speaks to you. But begin to move your hands away just slightly. Chin bowed just slightly. Offering this desire up to the greater good. Knowing that you will probably make some mistakes. You'll probably make some really good choices too. All of it in service to the greater good. See yourself offering it and see the receiving of it as well into the greater good. The greater good wants you to have this magic. It wants you to have your power. And now we're going to ask for something, not as an exchange, not as I gave you this and now I want this back, but as a relationship. Giving and receiving. Pushpaputti Mudra is about giving and receiving. It's a relationship. So ask for a blessing. Ask for a blessing on this desire. Ask for it to serve you as well as the individual representing the greater good. Whether that blessing comes in the form of a feeling or a color or something that you just kind of know, it doesn't matter. Let it just come to you. Receive it. And now you're going to bring your palms of your hands together and then place them anywhere on your pelvis. And you might even find that they want to go right directly on your pussy, but on your womb, on your sacrum, anywhere that you feel called for this desire to live, to be born into creation. Bring your hands there. Just receive even more into the home of your creation. This desire and its blessing, this offering to the greater good. Feel the softening of the receiving of this. And then ask your body here, what is the first step? What is the first step? Because it's not just about having a desire, it's about moving toward it? What is the first step that I can take to realize this dream? Thank you. Release your hands. When you're ready, you can come back to the screen, bring your attention back here. If anyone feels the need or the desire to share anything that came to you, whether it makes sense to the group or not, if you just want to put it out here as a way to make it more real, or even just a feeling that you got going through it, some sense, some noticing that you had, some difference. I'll share when I was offering to my divine higher good, I got a clear message of go bigger. Go bigger. You're too small. Yeah. A sense of peace rather than need. Yep. Yeah, that's a great, great, great feeling to have. Wonderful. Well, thank you all. I want to talk about desire with food that matters. Cinnamon. An apple and cinnamon hot. My desire was to fresh food for so many others, to maybe offering fresh food to so many others. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. We will always feed people. That's the thing. All of it. That's the thing I know about women. We love to feed people on all senses of that word. Okay, so I want to just go into the next steps on this. And I always like to share a next step that is free for everybody to do. And I want you to all do it no matter what. And I want to share, if you want to go a little deeper, one of the courses that I offer. So first, let's talk about the free thing, which is start a desire journal. It's really great to have a dedicated notebook that is entirely about desires and that you keep it only for that, because it's really fun to go back and then be like, oh my God, that came true. Or like, wow, I don't want that anymore. And I'm going to cross it out. It's so lovely to have that. And I started doing some form of this when I was, God, I was probably 22. And I just found a sheet of paper. Somehow I'd saved it for all these years. And it had this list of things on there, including I want someone to give me a motorcycle, which actually happened maybe 15 years later. And I didn't know. I was like, I want someone to give me a motorcycle. And I had these very specific things about what I wanted. And, I have learned since then that the broad strokes is better when we're asking for a blessing on something. But I got a motorcycle among many other things, right? Like there was a list of things that I had wanted when I was 22, and a lot of them have come true. And a lot of them are, I was able to revisit that and say, no more, don't want that, done. Start a desire journal. Even better, start a group chat with your friends where you all share your desires. And then you congratulate each other if something comes to fruition. Now, if you want to go deeper, I'll share with you, there's a course that I offer called the Heartbreak Cure. And there's a reason that a lot of the practices within this course have to do with showing women how to turn back into themselves as their source of turn on. How to give back your sexual agency from other places that you might have left it in past partners or in lovers or in desires that were unfulfilled about these lovers. I want every woman to understand how it feels to really own her desire. And our sexual desire is one of the easiest ways to understand it, and there's so many wonderful practices around things like consent, wheel of consent being a really great tool to help us understand and define what it is that is our desire versus what we think we're doing for someone else. This is vital right now. So desire is very much linked to the uprising of women right now, the way that the feminine energy is beginning to take a stronger hold in the world. Desire is very much at the root of that. It's at the root of healing the witch wound. It's at the root of getting over, the kind of sexual disempowerment, disenfranchisement, getting rooted into the pelvis. All of it links back to desire. So the heartbreak cure was something that I developed in relationship to the fact that most women give away their power most easily in our romantic relationships. And so the course is designed to help us work through the ways, the patterns that might have existed that allowed us to just have our energy siphoned off to various people and partners in our lives, and how to claim it, how to have it come back. And when I say the heartbreak cure, it's not about becoming hardened, but about being so soft and open and being so resilient that you're literally never going to have to worry about having your heart broken again. So I am offering free calls for anyone who is interested in learning more about that. And the way that I do these free calls, I'll put the link in the chat there. The way I do these free calls is that it's just an examination of your life. Like I treat them like coaching calls. They're 1 hour. And the idea with it is that we're going to look at the places that you're stuck, specifically in sexuality, in relationships. We're going to look at the different ways that things that you've tried and whether they've worked or not. And I'm going to offer you what I can offer you. And then if we decide that we're a fit and we want to keep going, then great, we'll keep going. But it is so much more important to me that we have a conversation than for me to, get someone signed up for it that isn't really a good fit for it. So if you're interested in, you just want to chat with me for an hour about your love life, your sexuality, right? Like I'd love to talk to you. So there's the link. Before we go into a few minutes for Q&A, I know I'm always over. I'm just going to say that. But I try not to be way over. But we're going to stop the recording so that we can do the Q&A off camera. But before we do that, I just want to invite you to take your hands on your heart, maybe one hand on your womb, one hand on your heart, or pelvis, wherever you want to put it, somewhere down there. And just really cement in the guidance of this ancient story of Inanna. Really cement in the connection that we've always had to knowing what we want and knowing how to ask for it. To cement in the direction that we're heading, where more of us are safer than ever to explore what we want and to act according to it, to be the magical, intuitive beings that we have always been. Let this be a feeling in your body that you can hold and carry forward for the rest of your days. Thank you.